Hi, my name is Chelmis. For the past 25 years I have been working in broadcasting and streaming media, most of that time spent with metadata, user interfaces and content discovery systems. This is the last presentation of the summit, so I'm going to try to summarize what has been discussed over the past 2 days, from my perspective using a content discovery on streaming media lens. Give me 20 minutes and I hope to leave you with some valuable insights from the content discovery world. We will touch on 4 main topics drawn from this summit. Business return on investment from recommendations, leveraging data and artificial intelligence for personalization, using customer data responsibly, balance consumer and business needs. So let's start with a simple question. Why bother with recommendations and personalization? At least in the streaming world, this is a genuine question. Let me explain what I mean. I'm sure all of you subscribe to one or more streaming services like Netflix, Prime, Disney, Sky, or Apple TV. Every one of those services has a homepage where content is advertised using images, also called content tiles. There's a war going on for the control of those content tiles between recommendation engines and the marketing teams. Marketing will argue that they should control the homepage because they know which programs need to be promoted as they have paid for the acquisitions, and they need enough eyeballs to see them, and a good portion of those eyeballs to consume the content. On the other side, recommendation engines will argue that they can find a hidden gem that fits perfectly to each user profile, and therefore the recommended tiles can create more clicks, meaning more conversions. And they each try to control more space, and they are in a constant debate. This battle has been going on for years, but in most cases, marketing wins because marketing has the money and the final say. So my question stands, why bother? Before I answer this question, let me tell you a story about Netflix. Netflix started streaming in 2007 with what is called library content, for those who are not familiar with the term. When movies are first released, they are called currents. They typically move through theatrical release, DVD, back in the day, pay-per-view, and then subscription and services on premium movie channels, like Sky Movies. Once they're done with those viewing windows, which last for many months, they become library content. Library content is a huge bucket with every movie ever made, and it is usually available to free-to-air TV channels. Movies you see on ITV, BBC, Channel 4. There are about 100 movies made every year, the currents, and about 40,000 library movies ever made. These numbers are just for the major US studios. So Netflix, for the first 6 years, from 2007 until 2013, started streaming only library content because no one would give them any premium content, any currents, to make available on their subscription model. Studios did not value libraries as much, so Netflix took a huge bucket of old content to offer in their new streaming service. How do you sell old content? Netflix thought. These old movies, they must still have an audience, and we just need to find who these people are. We just need to understand them, profile them, and if we successfully recommend those old movies, they will consume them. I do not need to tell you if this strategy worked. In 6 years, 30 million subscribers. So, back to answering my question. Let the marketing push for the new content that they just paid a lot of money for and take over the homepage banners. Also, let the recommendation engines sell the long tail, the old content, that will become relevant to each user when properly suggested. You will agree there is no point recommending the Sunday live football game in Premier League to a football fan. So there is no need to fight. There is content for both sides that can be used to generate revenue. And not just revenue. Both currents and suggested library content can add to how users value the service. Which brings me to another area where personalization can help on the return on investment. When users decide to leave a streaming service, they leave because the balance of value versus cost has shifted. They believe they're paying more than the service is worth. To save those users who are going to churn, you have to increase the value. Actually, you have to increase the perceived value. Value in streaming services and in most other services is always subjective. It is what you think it is. And what you think it is has been influenced or can be influenced by those recommendation and personalization services. The more relevant content is suggested, the more the value of the service goes up in people's minds. The perceived value goes higher than price paid, so less churn and better retention. Recommendation engines started from a very simple genre-based matching rule. Both content-to-content and user profile recommendations relied on basic genre or subgenre tagging of content in order to make suggestions: comedy, drama, action, thriller. Very quickly this became irrelevant, because pretty much every movie today is a drama, and the lines between action, comedy and thriller have become so grey it is impossible to make distinct connections and correlations. A few years later, Netflix, always leading this space, started tagging content with what is called micro-genres or micro-tagging. Suddenly, we started seeing movies about road trips or supernatural or heroes, and those descriptive metadata could find much better correlations between content and user profiles. Still, that wasn't enough, so Netflix took it a step further, where they combined micro-genres together to create thematic categories such as comedies based on real life, or emotional movies with a twist. All these concepts worked really well, and technically, some clever but basic algorithms could produce relevant recommendations. This is where most content providers are today, at best. Some still use basic genre correlations. A couple of years ago, AI came in, capable of consuming way more data points. Machine learning models are now analyzing video and can extract metadata that was humanly impossible in the past. Let me share how I see the future of content metadata fueling today's advanced recommendation engines. On the content front, AI video analysis can capture information not with an intention to inform the user, but feed huge amount of data to recommendation engines. Think about objects and scenes appearing on a movie. For example, 75% guns, 66% fight scenes, 10% laughing or crying, and so on. Subjects the content is dealing with: love, friendship, war, politics, heroes, religion. Pair that with cast information, micro-genre tagging, and the setting, for example, set in LA 2035 or dystopian future. Now add technical information such as cinematic style, storyline pace, lighting. Hundreds of metadata points. On the user actions front, AI can consume data points collected, not only from the UI navigation, but the whole living room with other devices connected to the TV, or even the entire household, with data from multiple rooms or different playback devices. Imagine AI to know your sleeping pattern so that can recommend short-form content if it is too late. Data can also be collected outside the household, in the neighborhood, for local or seasonal events. The more data, the better. Now we have explored how deep recommendations can go. Let's add another layer. Imagine, while browsing your TV for something to watch, the description of each program is written just for you, using the features you love most, making the content as relevant as humanly possible. But this sounds like an impossible task. Who's going to write a dozen descriptions per program? Well, AI can deliver on this promise and at the same time solve some other descriptive metadata problems. Let me dive into the details. When the same legacy program descriptions are recycled in every new device or UI, they do not necessarily fit design specifications. This can result in a bad use of the available real estate. Information can be duplicated and valuable space on the screen is wasted. Sometimes the description gets truncated and information can be missed, as you can see from these real screenshots of major content providers. When a program is recommended to a profile, the user tends to skim through the description, and often the information provided does not capture their interest. Although technically relevant, it does not feel relevant. This is a real example of a recommendation engine correctly offering this movie to 3 different users. But the description does not mention any of the profile keywords used by the recommendation engine. In addition, most modern interfaces require multiple versions of pictures. For posters, backdrops and hero images. It is very expensive to manually curate every program image for the different needs of the UI, so only popular content gets the advantage of a visually rich interface. You will notice that hero images and backdrops are only used in popular content. To make things worse, a fresh idea on a new UI that attempts to reposition everything can be discarded only because existing metadata, text and images does not fit. And as a result, many wonderful ideas are abandoned at design stage. Synth is an AI engine we developed capable of authoring tailor-made TV and movie program information. With Synth, manual text and image editing is no longer required to create multiple versions of metadata for every single program. For the first time, content has the power to maximize its audience and consumption rates through personalization. Content providers are now enabled to create new interfaces with perfect fit of content descriptions and images, lifting today's design restrictions from existing metadata libraries. Program information can be reauthored to produce personalized descriptions that perfectly match each user profile and capture attention from the first glance. See how those keywords are now elevated at the beginning of the description, making the content feel more relevant to each user. Images can be reworked using AI, replacing all the manual work, making it possible for every piece of content to have rich visual coverage. And this is not the end game. I can go much further. The vast amount of data consumed by AI will inevitably lead to user behavior analysis and then to prediction models. Before an engine recommends, it should be able to predict your next move and your appetite for consumption. AI will know what you would prefer to watch, but also how much you will enjoy consuming that suggested content. So where does this lead us? In the future, personalization will no longer be about offering choices. It will be about anticipating those predicted choices. But as we dive into the world of predictive AI, companies will need to balance technological advances with ethical responsibilities. Predictions should only enhance, not manipulate. In the end, predictive AI represents the next phase of personalization. It promises incredible business potential by delivering content and experiences that are not just tailor-made but truly anticipated. However, this power must be used responsibly, ensuring that trust, transparency, and user control remain central to the development of those predictive systems. The future of personalization will be driven by AI, but the success will depend on keeping the user's needs front and center. A discussion that takes us to the next topic. Let's start by looking at what happens when data is not collected and managed responsibly. The web and mobile domains have already shown us what happens when personal data is mishandled. We have all seen the chaos, unregulated data collection that led to invasive marketing, unethical business practices, and a fundamental erosion of consumer trust. Think about the most trivial apps you might download on your smart TV player, like an app that makes funny noises when you press a remote control button. Hidden in the fine print is an agreement for the app to collect all the data of your smart TV, everything you watch, forever. This is the exact type of chaos we need to avoid in the world of streaming and personalization. As personalization systems continue to advance, we cannot allow them to follow the same path of unregulated data collection seen in other domains like web and mobile applications. We must establish clear ethical boundaries and transparent practices for how user data is collected, stored, and used in AI-driven systems. The future of personalization lies in gaining trust from users, not just gaining data. Don't get me wrong, they will need data, lots of data, but this is not a collection sprint race. It's a marathon that companies have to run together with their users. In order for AI engines to deliver effective personalization, they need to know as much as possible about you. They want to know not just what you've watched, but what you got offered but didn't watch. What your friends and family are watching. How much time you spend watching. What devices you have and which ones you are watching from. But here's the crucial point. This data doesn't belong to the streaming provider companies. The data belongs to the users, and companies are simply borrowing the information always with the user's permission. This means respecting the user's right to privacy and always treating their data on short-term loan. The most forward-thinking companies will understand this and adopt a user-first data approach. It's essential that every company makes it clear to everyone exactly how the data is being used and why. Transparency is key. More than that, users should be able to control their data and have the right to demand deletion whenever they see fit. The right to be forgotten, Act back in 2014, that led to GDPR, should be extended and updated as AI-driven personalization becomes more prominent. Companies must create a new social contract with users where the collection of personal data is transparent, purpose-driven, and reversible at any moment. Personalization can only thrive in a future where users feel in control of their data. Companies must adopt a privacy-by-design approach, where data minimization is a key principle. Instead of collecting excessive data, AI should be designed to only require essential data points to provide relevant recommendations. Emerging AI techniques, such as federated learning, allow data to remain on the user's device, minimizing the need for centralized data collection. In addition, AI systems are only as good as the data they are trained on. If that data is biased or incomplete, the AI will end up reinforcing biases. As we develop AI-driven personalization engines, we must ensure that algorithms are inclusive, free from bias, and tested against a diverse range of control data to avoid preserving or promoting discrimination. Companies will need to invest in fairness and accountability when training AI models, with regular audits for ethical compliance. But let's pause here. As discussions of data privacy are never-ending, let's go back to the fundamentals, as we are running out of time. Some people confuse personalization with targeted advertising. They think both are ways to somehow manipulate users into an action. The difference, though, is critical, and the difference is by design. Targeted ads is a push marketing method, forcing selected products in front of users with a scope to maximize consumption and therefore hit sales targets. Personalization, on the other hand, is a pull system method. It offers suggestions that fit naturally with the user's behavior, preferences, and interests, enhancing their discovery experience rather than disrupting it. They are inviting the user, who had already decided to consume, to accept an offer about a product that feels more relevant to their profile. The key to getting personalization right is to please the individual user first. Success lies not in maximizing company key performance indicators, but ensuring the user feels understood and valued. When users are happy, their loyalty follows, and over time, this drives significant business outcomes. If the outcome brought by the cluster of individual recommendations does not align with the business success, then there must be something wrong with the product. Let me repeat that, as it is the most important message in my opinion. If the collective consumption of the recommended products does not align with the business key performance indicators, then either the products are wrong or those performance indicators are wrong. And finally, another extremely important factor is control. In our industry, content discovery puts the user in control, and this is where the real value lies. When users feel empowered to choose their own path, they build trust and loyalty toward the service. If users feel that a company is trying to force a particular recommendation on them, that trust can quickly erode. Ethical AI needs to respect user autonomy, giving users more control over what they see and select. This empowerment is key. This philosophy can be applied to any industry that is using recommendations. In the future, personalization must always be designed to feel like the user is in the driving seat. Recommendations should always provide choices using personal filters. Summarizing, whether it's content recommendations, retail suggestions, or any other form of personalization, users must feel that their needs are being put first rather than a hidden business agenda. The more control you give to users, the more likely they are to trust your service and remain loyal. And this takes us to the end of this session. If there is one thing that I would like for you to take home, it would be 4 distilled recommendation principles. Respect user data. Collect and analyze responsibly. Predict before you suggest. Let AI-driven algorithms do the work. Please the customer first. Deliver authentic user-driven recommendations. Let the user drive, and the user will consume, and feedback the result back in the system on a loop. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure and an honor talking in this summit. If you'd like to connect or discuss these topics further, feel free to reach out to me.